My father will never forgive me for being born. My mother died giving birth to me, and my father made sure I never forgot that I was her killer. You ripped her apart from the inside, he'd tell me every morning before school, his coffee mug trembling in his hands. She would still be here if you just stayed where you belonged. Dad kept Mom's bedroom exactly as she left it, down to the half-finished crossword puzzle on her nightstand. He'd spend hours in there talking to her picture, apologizing for my existence. I learned to walk on eggshells, literally tiptoeing past that door because any sound would send him into a rage about how I was disturbing her peace. Our house was a shrine to everything I had destroyed. Mom's clothes hung in the closet like ghosts. Her makeup sat untouched on the dresser, and her favorite tea grew moldy in the cabinet because Dad refused to throw anything away. He'd make me dust her things every week, whispering about how careful I needed to be with her belongings since I'd already taken my actual mother from him. When I turned 7, Dad started making me write apology letters to bring to Mom's grave every week. They all started with, "Dear Mom, I love you so much, and I'm sorry I killed you." He'd read them aloud at her headstone, crying over my forced confessions while I stood there wondering why God had made me such a monster. Even outside of the grave visits, my life was miserable. Teachers noticed the bruises on my arms where Dad would grab me during his lectures about Mom's death, but he'd charm them with stories about how hard single parenting was and how much I reminded him of his beloved deceased wife. They'd look at me with pity, never suspecting that the gentle widower was slowly destroying his son's soul. On my 16th birthday, Dad got blackout drunk and finally revealed the twisted plan he'd been nurturing for years. "You know what you're going to do when you turn 18? He slurred, cornering me in the kitchen. "You're going to join the military and die for your country like you should have died instead of her. It's the only way you can make this right." Something that I didn't even know I had left in me broke that night. So I called my mom's brother Kyle, who I barely knew because Dad had cut off all contact with her family. I told him everything that had been happening and what my father had said, and Kyle drove 4 hours to our doorstep and said, "You're coming with me." Dad tried to stop us. My uncle grabbed him by the shirt and said something that changed everything. "I was there when Elaine died," Kyle said, his voice shaking with years of suppressed anger. "The doctors told you the truth about what happened, but you were too drunk on grief to hear it. She had a rare blood disorder that made pregnancy dangerous. You knew it, she knew it, but she wanted this baby anyway." Dad's face went white as Kyle continued. "She made me promise to protect him if anything happened to her, and I failed because I let you convince everyone that space would help you heal. But you didn't heal, Daniel. You turned into a monster." Kyle handed me a letter with my name written in Mom's handwriting. Inside, she'd written about how excited she was to meet me, how she'd already picked out my first Halloween costume, and how she hoped I'd inherit her love of music and Dad's sense of humor. The last line broke me. "If something happens to me, please know that you are wanted and loved beyond measure, my sweet baby boy." I stared at the letter and then at my father, my vision swimming. "She knew the risks, but she wanted me because she loved me," I screamed at him. "She loved me without ever meeting me, and you can't even love me when I'm right in front of you. She would hate you if she was here." He fell to the ground crying, but Kyle and I just left him there. I spent the next 2 years living with Kyle, learning about the mother I'd never known, and slowly understanding that her death wasn't my fault. When I graduated high school, Dad showed up uninvited to the ceremony. He looked homeless, unshaven, and desperate. I stared at this broken man who had stolen my childhood and felt nothing but emptiness. "She died loving me," I said quietly. "You spent 18 years making sure I never felt that love. That's not grief, Dad. That's evil." He reached for me, tears streaming down his face, but I walked away. Some people don't deserve forgiveness, even when they finally understand what they've destroyed.